Good evening. A warm welcome to all of you. Good evening. A warm welcome to all of you for this webinar. Natural is future. We are thankful to all of you for taking your precious time to join this webinar. I am Midun Raj, Product Manager, Natural Remedies Pvt Limited. I would be the moderator of this webinar. This webinar is presented to you by Natural Remedies Pvt Limited. Before going to our main topic, please let me allow to give a small brief about natural remedies. Our visionary, Sri R.K. Agarwal, our chairman, with his foresightedness, created pioneering activity in herbal and animal healthcare domain. Today, under the leadership of our managing director, Mr. Anurag Agarwal, and our chief operating officer, Mr. K. Narendra Reddy, Natural Remedies is #1 herbal veterinary healthcare company of India. The backbone for getting the identity of #1 for us is our world-class research and development center, which is located at Bangalore. Natural products are very complex in structure with deeper of science and validation. We developed few of our brands as brand leaders in their segment, and we call them best-in-class natural solutions. Based on the science and deliverables, our products are patronized by our satisfied customers around the world, and as a result, we have strong presence in more than 30 countries. Natural Remedies provide solutions in terms of specialty products for all species, namely ruminant, poultry, aqua, and pets. We believe nature is the treasure, science is the strength, and health and happiness are the core of life. And our vision is that we harness nature, apply science for the health and happiness. Natural Remedies have a world-class state-of-the-art research and development facility where we have more than 40 scientists working with us. We have more than 120 scientific publications in peer-reviewed journals and more than 15 patents. More than 220 phyto compounds isolated for global reference standard and more than 100 monographs contributed for US Pharmacopoeia, British Pharmacopoeia, and Indian Pharmacopoeia. We have our in vitro GLP certified lab for safety studies. The quality control process of natural remedies is based on 4 pillars: genuinity, safety, efficacy, and consistency. We follow a stringent quality control process to provide you safe and effective product batch after batch. You get what you pay for. Being vocal for local, we are an Indian multinational organization and growing globally across 30 countries. Today, some of our brands has turned to global brands, namely Phytosi, Codin Plus, and Stodi. Now, proceeding towards our main presentation, to make this webinar interactive, there are options for chat, question, and polls on your screen. If you are using a laptop or desktop, you can see these options on the right side of your screen. If you're using a mobile phone, you can see this option if you scroll down. If you want to introduce yourself or give any suggestions, please use the chat option. If you want to ask questions, please use the question option. You can ask your question anytime during the webinar, and we would be happy to answer all of your questions during this webinar or through your email at a later time. Today, we have Dr. Sudhir Rukadikar, an eminent veterinary pathologist and a renowned poultry health consultant who has 36 plus years of experience in poultry field. Dr. Rukadikar graduated with BVSc and AH degree from Bombay Veterinary College, Mumbai in May 1980 and postgraduated in veterinary pathology from same institute in January 1983. He worked as assistant professor of pathology at Bombay Veterinary College for about 3 years. Dr. Rukadikar has a wide exposure to disease diagnostic laboratory procedures as well as field operations. He has worked from the grassroots level in the poultry farms and started career in poultry as poultry pathologist in May 1985. Dr. Rukadikar has also served as DGM, Venkateshwara Hatcheries, and AVP of Globion India Private Limited, among various other positions throughout his widespread career. His clients are spread in India as well as other countries like Bangladesh, Nepal, and Nigeria. He is a technical advisor to a few pharmaceutical and animal biological manufacturing companies. I welcome Dr. Sudhir Rukdekar sir on stage. Today, he will enlighten us about a very relevant topic for current scenario, respiratory challenges in chickens in humid conditions, an overview and solution. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Let me start sharing my screen.
Yes, sir.
Is it visible now?
Yes, sir. Visible, sir.
Okay, so I welcome all again from my side, and thank you very much, Natural Remedies, for giving me this opportunity to speak on this very relevant topic. And we know that this company is a leader in bringing phytogenics in poultry field also. So I think in humans also nowadays people are going more towards herbal preparations, and we in poultry also are trying to avoid antibiotics and go to herbal preparations. Now, as Mithun said, we are going to discuss about respiratory challenges in poultry, especially with reference to high humidity, which is seen in this season. Now, instead of specific disease as such or specific respiratory entity, many times it so happens that it's a combination many times with involvement of viruses, bacteria, fungi, parasites. Sometimes it is a complicated picture. So nowadays, instead of one specific disease, many times it appears as respiratory disease complex. So we call this RDC. And we are going to see what are these impacts of RDC, especially in the present situation of high humidity in all the areas. Now, in this era, poultry operations are extending widely throughout the world, not only in India or not only in Asia, and they are growing fast. But along with that, respiratory diseases are becoming increasingly apparent in chickens. And maybe the intensive rearing methods what we are following, they are responsible for marked increase in avian respiratory problems worldwide. And that's why I said a broader term, RDC is used in case of this complication. Now we look at the economics. Crores of rupees are lost each year in India as a result of poultry diseases caused by viruses, bacteria, and fungi. Despite the abundant use of antibiotics, best available vaccines, the microbial diseases remain a constant problem to the poultry industry. And one of the major reasons for this is high bioburden, heavy bioburden. What is bioburden? The presence of disease-causing organisms into the shed, maybe viruses, bacteria, fungi, parasites. When these are in high numbers, at unacceptably high levels, then these are carried over from one batch to next. And that's why the cleaning and thorough disinfection of sheds before placement of new flock are very important. I'll touch this point again in my further slides. So this becomes one of the major reasons why, despite use of major antibiotics and best available vaccines, you don't get the results. Because once the population of these microorganisms increases beyond acceptable limits, it can break through the immunity of vaccinated birds also. And that's why many times the vaccines fail. We blame the vaccine, but there may be other reasons which could be reason for by failure. Now, there is also a growing level of public pressure to restrict the use of antibiotics to therapeutic than prophylactic use in food animals. You know, although last 3, 4, 5 years this topic is being discussed, so many residues of these antibiotics in chicken meat, that discussion is going on. And you know that because of this emergence of newly MDR bacteria, multi-drug resistant bacteria, this has become a major issue. So we don't want to use the antibiotics as far as possible in our poultry production. We should use only for therapeutic use and not as a prophylactic use. That is for prevention use like antibiotic growth promoters. Now that's why we have to pay more attention to increased animal hygiene levels. Animal here we restrict of course to chicken, but if we increase hygiene levels in our rearing practices, we can reduce the challenge on existing vaccines and prolong their useful life. We know nowadays many times the vaccines fail, newer strains come, they are added to vaccines, these vaccines come to market, newer antibiotics are very few. So naturally, if we increase the level of hygiene in our poultry production systems, This will definitely reduce the challenge on the existing vaccines and prolong their useful life. Similarly, it can reduce the erosion of available antibiotic resources because antibiotics, as I said, very few molecules newly come into the market, and it takes many years for a molecule to come in the market and settle as a treatment part. So that erosion were to stop, and that's why if we increase the hygiene level, the erosion will be reduced, and this will be available for use in poultry as well as human use. So what are the predisposing causes of respiratory infection? What is predisposing? Which will pave way or make a way for respiratory problems to occur in the chickens. Most important in this season is dampness, which is high humidity. Then poor air exchange. Many times in this season, they may have to keep the curtains closed because of rains, and then the poor exchange will be there. Ventilation will not at all be there. Overcrowding, which reduces the immunity power of the birds, immunosuppression. Sudden temperature changes, one day 25 degrees, next day 30 degrees, or one day 15 degrees, next day 10 degrees. Sudden temperatures, the birds are not able to adapt with the temperature change. Filthy litter, as the moisture is high, the litter may be filthy, may not dry properly. And the vaccination reactions. This is a very important point, not only in this season. Around the year, we are facing this problem, majorly in broiler breeders and broilers rather than layers. But this is also an important point. So one of these or all of these together will make a way for these viruses or bacteria or fungi or parasites to cause the respiratory problems in our chickens. Now, what are the common signs of respiratory disease complex in chickens? One is, of course, sneezing. We also, whenever we get cold, we start getting runny nose, we start sneezing. So that will be very first sign. Open mouth breathing, when the birds are not able to comfortably breathe air, they have to open the mouth and take the air inside. So open mouth breathing. Gurgling sounds, breathing sounds when the birds breathe in or breathe out. There is some gurgling sound coming out, which can be very clearly heard in the flocks during night period when the birds are not active. Ruffled feathers, of course, not a specific sign, but in many times you may get this in respiratory distress. Discharge around nostrils and eyes. I'll show some photographs also. Generally, you should not expect any discharge from nostrils or eyes. Even in humans, we don't have any discharges from the eyes or nostrils unless we have some cough and cold issues. Then eye swelling. I'll show you some photographs also that, and head shaking. All these are common signs of respiratory disease complex in chicken. Of course, only from signs we will not be able to diagnose a particular disease. That's why we are referring the term RDC. Now, what are the losses because of respiratory disease complex? One is poorer performance. Maybe layers or broilers or breeders, the performance will be poor. In case of layers, it will be drop in egg production, deterioration of internal and external quality of eggs. That is, external quality means the shell structure, shell shape of the eggs, calcification. Internally, the thin albumin and thick albumin and yolk, all those things will be damaged if there is RDC. Higher mortality may be in layers, maybe in broilers, maybe in breeders. Mortality will be high because the respiratory system is damaged. Why it is more sensitive, we'll discuss in the further topic. Contaminations at processing plant. When the broilers are going to processing plant, if the birds are having RDC, they are not dead. They will be sacrificed at the processing plant. But when the carcasses are open for processing, they will see inside the changes and the carcasses will be condemned. They will not be accepted for further processing. And then more likely, they will be affected by immunosuppressive diseases. And that will be having more severe and prolonged course of disease. We don't want any disease to occur in poultry farms, that is in the first phase. If at all it comes, we want it to disappear quickly by our management methods and treatment part. But if the immunosuppression is there, the birds will suffer more severely and more longer period with the disease. Now, why chicken respiratory system is so important in our poultry? One thing, it is very different from mammals. We people are mammals. We have got two different sections in our body, thorax and abdomen. And our respiratory system ends at thorax. There is a dividing curtain or diaphragm, and down below there is no respiratory system. But that is not the case in case of chicken. Chicken respiratory system is spread throughout the body, right from nostrils till the end of the body part. The respiratory system is spread. And that's why maintaining integrity of respiratory system, maintaining immunity of respiratory system is very important, because if you insult the respiratory system, it will have overall impact on the general performance of the birds, broiler, layer, and breeder. As we know, there is upper respiratory tract and lower respiratory tract. Upper respiratory tract is nostrils, trachea, and bronchi. The windpipe, which divides into two bronchi, and the nostrils and sinuses. That is all upper respiratory tract, which is important first line of defense. Whenever any pathogen tries to enter the respiratory system, these are the first line of it will be tried by bird not to allow entry of these in the nostrils, in sinuses, in trachea, in bronchi. There is certain mechanism I'll show you in the next slide, which does not allow these pathogens to enter into the deeper respiratory tract. And then lower respiratory tract, that is lungs and air sacs. Air sacs is the very distinctive feature of avian respiratory system. We don't have air sacs, we have lungs, which are having a different structure than chicken lungs. So air sacs is a special structure only in case of birds, thin walled extensions of bronchi that look like balloons. There are different, I'll show you the photograph of schematic drawing of this air sacs. But these air sacs is also a major part of respiratory system of chicken. And since it is spread throughout the body, the damage to this will have a very bad impact on the performance. And one special more characteristic of these air sacs is some of them are connected to longer bones like femur and humerus. I will show you the photograph. Femur is the leg bone which we eat as leg piece, and humerus is the bone in the wings. Now these bones are also having contact from air sacs. Connection is there. So if the air sacs get infected, the bones are also likely to get infected. Now this system is for only for birds because they form light bones, pneumatic bones, which help them to fly. The birds are supposed to fly. So in the flight, this becomes advantageous. But that's why it becomes delicate also, because air sacs are connected to humerus as well as in the femur. So we must take care of air sacs, which is respiratory system. This is a schematic drawing of air sacs. You can see here all these balloon-like structures are all these air sacs. And here on the upper side, upper left side, you can see one humerus, that is a bone which is in the wings. And then down below, in the last abdominal air sac, you can see which is connected to the femur, which is a leg piece what we eat. So either side they are connected to these bones. These bones are called as pneumatic bones. Pneumat is related to air. That's why pneumonia is inflammation of lungs. So these pneumatic bones also may get infected if some infection is there in the air sacs. So you can see other same thing in the colored picture also, that some are the paired air sacs, some are single air sacs, but this is the trachea coming inside the lungs, and then all these air sacs which will help complete respiratory system of the birds or complete respiration mechanism, inhalation of air and expiration of air, which are very important parts of it. And one more specialty for chicken system is cleft in the hard palate. Hard palate, if you touch your hard palate by your tongue or finger, you don't see any break. It is a continuous thing. If there is cleft in hard palate, it's an anomaly. It's a normal thing in humans. But in case of chickens, what you see is this is also part of respiratory system. And many times you must have seen that the chickens cannot eat anything or swallow anything with mouth shut. Because if they eat with shut mouth, the feed will enter into the cleft. So they have to lift the mouth and then swallow it. So this is also a specialty of chicken system. Now it's a part of also avian immune system. Now immunity is a key word in human world also. Since COVID-19 last year, February, March, everybody is speaking of immunity and immunity. And in immunity also a lot of herbal preparations are being recommended and used by humans. So immune system is also again having different arms, and one respiratory system is also an arm of avian immune system. You know there is something called a GALT and BALT, gut associated lymphoid tissue and bronchial associated lymphoid tissue. So this BALT helps in immune system, and when we want overall immunity of bird to be good, we must increase the immunity of respiratory system also. General immunity is one part, gut immunity is one part, respiratory immunity is one part. So we should try to make immune the respiratory system. So products are there to increase the immunity of respiratory system, which can be used so that the respiratory tract, which is equipped with defense mechanisms, should work properly and defend the entry of disease-causing organisms into the body of the birds. Now, what this immune system will do? to prevent or limit infection by airborne disease agents. How it does, I will show in the next picture. So one thing they will try to prevent, or if at all they cannot prevent 100%, they will see that minimum part goes inside and maximum part is thrown out. That's why I said it is the first line of defense. Then to remove the inhaled particles, whatever is inhaled by birds, they will try to remove it by their movement, and then to keep the airways clean. Keeping the airways clean is very important part, be it humans or animals or chicken. We must keep the airways clean. When our airways are also not clean, we don't feel happy, we don't feel very fresh because we cannot have good fresh amount of air inside our body. Now, looking at the importance of respiratory system of chickens, we know how important it is because any insult to respiratory system is definitely going to damage your performance. Maybe in broilers, you will have higher mortality, higher FCR. In case of layers, you will have poor quality eggs, number of eggs will be reduced, feed per egg may increase. In case of breeders, you may have less number of chicks, hatchability may reduce. So all these factors are indirectly impacted by respiratory system. And that's why we should know what challenges are faced by this system in current humid conditions, what are the solutions at our hand to prevent the problems, and if at all they affect the system, how to minimize the deleterious effects of humid conditions on respiratory system. Because we know that the system is delicate throughout the body and very important in immune system also. Now what happens in this season? Dampness is high, that is humidity. Now generally around 50 to 70% relative humidity is supposed to be comfortable and very healthy for our chickens. It should not be very dry like 20% or should not be high like 100%. Because if you go to coastal areas, maybe Kolkata, maybe East Godavari, West Godavari, you will see there is high humidity almost 100%. So we don't want either very high humidity or very low. But in this season, it so happens that despite being away from sea, there will be humidity higher in most of the shades. Now, as I said, many times you have to keep the curtains closed in case of open houses. So air exchange will not be normal. We always say that there has to be a very good ventilation in case of chickens, right from their hatching till they are sold, either as cull birds or as broilers or breeders. They have to have a very good ventilation so that the dangerous gases like ammonia, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, they are removed from the shade and fresh air containing a lot of oxygen comes into the shade. We know there is about 19 to 20% oxygen in our air. So we should get that much concentration of oxygen in the shade so that birds get good oxygen. But if the air exchange is poor because of closed curtains or other factors which are related to management, the exchange will not be good and the birds will not be having good air to inhale. Filthy litter, if the litter is very dry, very dirty, very wet, then that is also a reason for our problems. And vaccination reactions, that I will come to you again at a later point. But vaccination reaction, as I said in my earlier slide, it's not only restricted to humidity or this humid area, humid season, it's always around the year a problem for all the types of chickens. Now, about 80% of water consumed by chicken is thrown out again into the barn, either by respiration or excretion in the feces. So if bird is consuming 100 ml of water, 80 ml is thrown out again, maybe by respiration, excretion in the feces, it is given back to the barn. And as I said, around 50 to 70% relative humidity, that is highly desirable. So if you have more than this, it's always a pressure on the respiratory tract of the chicken. Dampness, that is higher humidity in most of the area, which is a present situation. Now what happens is, whenever the air is not very dry or very humid, the birds are very comfortable with their respiratory system. But when the humidity is more, it puts a lot of pressure on the respiratory system. Right from nostrils, this pressure starts. And birds cannot breathe normally because they have to exert a lot of pressure for inhalation of air and expiration of air. So a lot of pressure means naturally the function of respiration is hampered. The birds will not get enough fresh air. Now I said one factor was poor air exchange. Now what happens is generally it will lead to ammonia built up in the shades. If we are talking of very small chicks, first week chicks, wherein the heating is done by burning something, maybe coal, then there will be carbon monoxide. But otherwise also carbon dioxide and ammonia buildup will be there in elder birds also. Now what happens is this damage, they will damage to ciliated epithelial cells of trachea. Now what is this? This is a special characteristic of our chicken trachea. Now trachea is our windpipe. I will show you the dramatic presentation. Uh, the respiratory system has got windpipe, which has got a lining of specific cells. And on these cells, there are very minute micro hair-like structures, which are called as cilia. And they keep on continuously beating. And by their continuous movement, they will not allow these pathogens to enter into the deeper system. They will keep on removing these microorganisms from system. Along with that, there is a small amount of mucus also, which is a normal thing. But it is a thin, watery mucus, not a thick one, which you cannot generally see. You can only feel if you open the trachea and move your finger. You can feel it, but it's not very high amount and thick mucus. So what happens is, when there is ammonia in the shed, that is NH3, and then water is there in the mucus, H2O. When they combine, they form what is known as NH4OH, ammonium hydroxide. And this is a highly irritant chemical. So in the trachea, this chemical is formed because of NH3 and ammonia, water in mucus, and then you get this product, ammonium hydroxide, and that will damage the ciliated epithelial cells. If this cilia is damaged, they cannot do their function of removing the bacteria or pathogens, and then they will deeply enter into the other respiratory system, basically lungs and air sacs, and cause all the further damages. So primary defense of respiratory system is weakened, because from there only, if the guards are there, if the guards are not working, the enemy can straightway enter into our houses. So same thing happens if our ciliated epithelial cells of trachea are damaged. Now what happens is, as I said, you increase ammonia levels more than 25 ppm, ciliostasis. What is meant by ciliostasis? This movement will stop. Cilia will be there, but this movement will slow down or completely stop. And at 40 ppm, above 40 ppm, there will be deciliation. That is, the cilia will reduce in the numbers, so further damage. Actually, in many farms, the ammonia level is always higher than this. If you get really the ammonia meters and go into the sheds, in many sheds it is above 50 ppm. I have seen it. So we should always try to keep ammonia to lowest level by good ventilation. When there is poor air exchange, no ventilation, and this factor is very important in humid conditions. So again, weakening of first line of defense. This is a drawing of what I meant. Now this is the upper picture, upper left, you see is a normal cilia. Now these are the cells which will line our windpipe or trachea. And these are the hair-like fine structures. Of course, they are very fine. When you enlarge them about a lakh of times, 1 lakh times, you can see them under electron microscope. So these cilia, they are normal things. And they, by continuous movement, they will not allow the pathogens. The second picture, what you are seeing on the right side, these are the pathogens. And by their continuous movement, they will not allow to attach it or go down. They will remove them outside. But when there is higher ammonia, one thing is it will stop their movement, and then higher amounts, it will cause deciliation. You can see the number of cilia has reduced almost by 1/3 or 1/4. So ammonia has this type of damaging effect on our respiratory tract of chickens, and then our first line of defense of chicken is weakened. These organisms will take upper hand. They will go down to the lower respiratory tract and produce all the diseases. And specifically what happens is, the main problem will be E. coli, coli bacillosis, because E. coli are known as opportunistic organisms. They own on their own, they generally cannot do anything. If they get some favorable condition like high ammonia leading to this type of conditions, or maybe other infections like mycoplasma or something, they take upper hand and you see a major mortality in birds. Because of damage to this respiratory tract, what happens is, on the left top, you see a normal trachea, which should be white, no red color, and slight mucus over there, no blood, nothing inside. In minor insult, you can see the slow to pictures, which is known as congested trachea. In very high infections like AI, you can see a hemorrhagic trachea, that is blood in the trachea. You can see the blood clots and dark red color. So these normal trachea, when it is not able to function properly, it will lead to this type of conditions, and finally this type, because this is indication that our respiratory system has got some problem. Then I said healthy air sacs. That was only a drawing. Here you can see a photograph. Air sacs are very thin, transparent structures. Here, if you see it's a thin structure, many times it is not visible also. You can see through and through. So it's a very clear structure. You can see even those feathers also over here. So it's thin, transparent structure, which is not having any, translucence. It is highly transparent. But when the respiratory system damages, it will have a problem like this. This is called as air secularities. Similar air curtain is there, but you can see completely frothy exudate accumulated over there. So this is again an indication of our respiratory distress or respiratory problem. Similarly, I said one of the signs is swollen eyes or discharge from the eyes. You can see this is a normal eye, very bright, round eye, no swelling, no discharge, nothing, very active bird. But in case of respiratory tract, we may see this type of picture. Again, you can see swelling of eye is not completely open. You can see the frothy liquid into the eyes of the bird. So it is again affected eye, maybe because of some respiratory issues. Then I said about vaccination reactions. Vaccine, we have to go for vaccination to protect our birds from infectious diseases, because diseases are going to be with us 24/7 and we have to prevent them. Prevention is always better than cure, we say. So without any doubt, it has contributed significantly to the health and welfare of poultry birds. But vaccine is finally virus. It is not something miracle. We take the virus from the disease outbreaks, we reduce its severity, pathogenicity, but it will produce the antibodies after giving to the bird. So that is the virus. So it has to multiply. Live vaccines, when we give, these vaccination reactions are related to live viruses, not the killed ones. So what happens is these viruses, they will replicate, multiply into the body of birds. Now certain viruses, they multiply in the intestinal tract, like ND, IB, IBD vaccine viruses. And certain viruses, they replicate in respiratory tract, like ND and IB viruses. So due to replication of in the respiratory tract, it will provoke a respiratory distress. Already there are so many viruses, I will show you again. So presence of these vaccination viruses and multiplication in upper respiratory tract will produce some respiratory distress and cause the problem in the birds. Already many pathogens are present in upper respiratory tract. Maybe Newcastle disease virus, maybe infectious bronchitis virus, maybe avian metapneumovirus, mycoplasma. They are generally present in some amount in respiratory systems, upper respiratory tract. Add to this the vaccine virus, they multiply in the respiratory tract. Add to this ammonia buildup in the shade, poor ventilation, immunosuppression. So what happens is all this cumulative effect of everything is weakened respiratory system. So we must take care of preventing the vaccination reaction also. Now respiratory diseases encountered in chicken are infectious coryza, infectious laryngotracheitis, ILT, infectious bronchitis, Newcastle disease, avian influenza, which has taken a very high toll in North India in January and February this month, and CRD, chronic respiratory disease or complicated CRD, which are very common. So these are basically primary diseases of respiratory diseases system. But we must not forget that there are certain other diseases also which involve some respiratory organs. These diseases like fowl cholera, aspergillosis, which is fungal disease, and fowl pox, diphtheria form or wet pox. They also affect the respiratory organs. So respiratory diseases are having a wider reach. So what should be our strategy then? Because we know we don't want to have any problems with our birds. So what should be our strategy? Looking at all these challenges, our target is to improve respiratory immunity. Now, respiratory immunity improvement means the respiratory system should be kept in healthy situation, the airways should be clean, and there should not be stress on the birds. So we should also try to increase the hemoglobin level in the birds so that oxygen carriage is better. You know hemoglobin, the role of hemoglobin is to take the oxygen from fresh inhaled air and carry it to the tissues for their functions. So if the lower hemoglobin is there, lower oxygen will go, the tissues will not perform properly. If you increase the hemoglobin level, more oxygen will be available and tissues will be more healthily performing their functions. And during this high risk period of humidity or field challenges or vaccine reaction, we should use the products which can remove the excess mucus in the bronchi by dilating them. Certain products are bronchodilators, because what happens is this mucus, what I said, normally very thin watery mucus layer will be there on trachea and bronchi, but it won't be thick or blocking the lumen or the cavity inside the bronchotrachea. If the lumen is thick, it will reduce the cavity in the bronchus, so naturally air passages are narrowed, the air will not go inside. And when through this thick mucus, maybe in bronchi, maybe in trachea, when the air goes in and out, because of this mucus, it will make the sounds like that type of sound comes, which is indication that there is a lot of mucus accumulated into the respiratory tract. And that's why we should use bronchial dilators, which will remove the excess mucus or expectorate it outside. So to protect the lungs and overall respiratory system, we must follow clean poultry shed environment. In case of disease, use the products to expand the capacity of lungs to ease the respiratory distress. Now I'll show you some photographs of the diseases which I mentioned in my list. What are the diseases in the poultry involving respiratory tract? One is avian influenza, what we call bird flu or variant in some areas. It will show you normally you see very dark red color of wattles and comb, but here you see swollen comb, swollen wattles, bluish color, or cyanotic combs and wattles. That is one indication. Then the shank region, if you see, they are swollen and hemorrhagic. In normal birds, we will not see any blood over here, so they are swollen and hemorrhagic. Then normal trachea of chicken, as I showed you, it should look like this. But in case of HPI, highly pathogenic AI, you will see a lot of hemorrhage and clotted blood into the trachea of the chickens. It is a very serious condition. As I said, in January and February this year, a huge number of birds died of AI in northern India. Then there may be plug at the bronchotracheal junction. As I said, the trachea is there, then it divides into two bronchi. At that point where the junction is there, sometimes you will see this type of plug. Now this plug will block the respiratory passages and birds will die of suffocation. Then in certain cases in AI, you may get hemorrhages on the epicardial fat. On the heart, you can see this type of hemorrhages. Then egg peritonitis you can get in case of layers or breeders. So here you can see different picture. One is this picture and one next picture. Now here, when it is solid exudate-like thing, it is generally bacterial origin because of E. coli. But when it is a liquid like this, it is generally viral origin and maybe AI. So these two are different pictures. You can see this is having different picture, this is a different one. Then torticollis, in case of Newcastle disease, we can see the twisting of neck, birds looking at the stargazing, which is seen in the recovery phase of Newcastle disease. Then at the postmortem of Newcastle disease, we can see the ulceration of cecal tonsils. On opening, they look like this. On the proventriculus, you see a lot of hemorrhages. Then trachea, again, as I said, normally this trachea, and in case of ND, it will be congested trachea, slightly reddish color. Then again, one photo showing more hemorrhages on proventriculus, and this is a very serious form. Right side, what you see, necrotic plaques in intestine. This is a very serious form, wherein the mortalities could be very high, like 80 or 90%. Then infectious coryza, the eyes are swollen. The bird, you can see, the eye is absolutely not normal, completely swollen, closed eyes. Here also you see a lot of swelling here. Nose is completely closed. Bird is not able to open the eyes. Same thing, swollen eye again in case of infectious coryza. Here you can see some exudate from the eyes also. This is swelling is also there, complete swelling below eyes, infraorbital sinus. But in the eyes also you can see this type of exudate coming out. Then here you can see this nasal discharge. I told you there should not be any discharge. Discharge from the nostrils, discharge from the eyes, indication of some respiratory distress. So here you can see this is nostril, and this yellow thing what you are seeing is a discharge. Here you can see again the swollen eyes. So these are some of the photographs which show you the respiratory problem. Now in case of IB, the gross respiratory lesions are not very clear. But in case of IB, the major part is played by either reproductive form or nephrogenic or kidney damaging form, nephropathogenic. So in case of IB, you can see the internal quality is damaged. There is more liquid albumin. Then the calcification is not proper. Wrinkled eggs, very thin shelled eggs, different colored eggs, different size egg, different shape eggs. So these are all indications of IB, but this is not confirmation. Confirmation has to be done with laboratory procedures. And then nephropathogenic form, which damages the kidneys, which can be seen in case of broilers as visceral gout. In case of older birds, you can see it as kidney stone. So this is not a kidney stone really. This is urolithiasis, we call this, stone formation in the urinary tract. So this is indication of pathogenic form of IB. So we know all these things. So what should be the principles of prevention of respiratory disease complex? General prevention, uh, good cleaning and disinfection of shed between the flocks. I said you this in the very beginning. Now what happens is, many times what happens when the birds are shifted from one shed, either as a broilers to the market or from brooding shed to growing shed, there is no any disease history in the farm. So what they feel, there is no infection in the shed. So let us go for nominal cleaning and disinfection. But certain viruses or bacteria or pathogens, they do not cause any damage to the elder birds, but they can cause damage to the young chicks. So if the infection has occurred at a later stage, your birds are not suffering from anything because they are immune. But when you remove the birds, the infection is there in the sheds. So if you don't thoroughly clean and disinfect, the new batch of chicks which is placed will get the infection right from beginning. So batch after batch it will go. So very good cleaning and disinfection between the sheds, that is a terminal disinfection. Another is known as a continuous disinfection, wherein at a frequent level, maybe weekly once or weekly twice, we have to go with virucidal sprays that will reduce the bioburden. Because I said why many times vaccines and antibiotics fail is mainly bioburden. So by use of regular sprays in the presence of birds, we are reducing the bioburden. Then prevention of immunosuppression. There are so many factors: managemental, field-related, environmental. All those we must take care to avoid the immunosuppression by putting minimum stress on the birds. Because stress and overcrowding are major factors causing immunosuppression. Then keep the environment well ventilated. I told you what is the importance of ventilation. Clean and dust free, and keep stress to minimum. So when you keep the well ventilated environment clean and dust free, naturally the respiratory system will not have any stress on it. The birds will be very healthily inhaling and out exhaling the air, so you don't have any problem over there. Now, what can be done as a prevention against RDC? We can use certain products. Products can be used as preventive as well as curative. Now, as I said in the beginning, nowadays people are going more for herbal products than chemical products, what have been used so far. So we can use products which will protect the respiratory system of the birds as a prevention. And similarly, these products can be used during treatment also, or in the phase of vaccine reaction. Now we know that we have to go for live vaccines, maybe broilers or layers of breeders. So many times we go for this vaccination, and especially now this low pathogenic AI, it is present throughout the India. And then certain viruses can cause the respiratory reaction in the presence. So if you use the products to reduce this reaction, naturally you will safeguard your birds against these respiratory reactions. So these products, as I said, should be able to dilate bronchi so that they can remove the excess mucus expectorant. In humans also we go like Benadryl expectorant or some other expectorant in the cough, because cough, what is cough? Cough is our mucus. So we expectorate it. So similar products can be used in poultry to dilate the bronchi and expectorate the cough outside. So the birds will get good relief for their respiration. So thanks a lot for your kind attention. After my presentation, there will be some other presentations, and then at the end, we'll have the question and answer session. As Mithun said, you can put all the questions in your question answer session. They will be replied at the end of it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir, for this insightful presentation. It was wonderful to get to know the overview and solutions for respiratory challenges in chickens in humid conditions. I request to the audience, if you have any questions, please write your questions in the question area, and we'll discuss your questions on the QA round. For the next session, we have Dr. Chandan Chatterjee with us. Dr. Chandan is a qualified veterinary graduate and have got 14 years of rich experience in veterinary industry. He has commendable exposure on phytogenic solutions for optimum health and productivity for poultry. Currently, he is working as Group Product Manager in Natural Remedies. Dr. Chandan will discuss on a natural solution to improve the respiratory health and productivity of chickens under challenging conditions. Over to you, sir.
Namaskar everyone, and thank you, Mithun. So please allow me to share my presentation.
Yes, sir.
Is it visible, Mithun?
Yes, sir. Visible, sir.
Okay, so first, before going to start my presentation, I would like to thank Dr. Rupekar sir for the very insightful presentation. And he also mentioned that respiratory immunity could be a key for better health and productivity of the bird. So after his presentation, I start my presentation on that keynote, that how can the respiratory immunity can be a key for better health and productivity. So, sir very clearly told, Rupekar sir, that avian respiratory system is very different from the human or mammalian respiratory system. It's quite different. To make it more efficient for the birds, it's quite complex in nature, and it's more prone to infections. So, how to protect the respiratory system, or how to make it more effective. So already respiratory immunity is there, that is supported by cilia, mucus, and some immunity cells. But when we talk about a perfect immunity or a proper immunomodulation, the proper immunomodulation actually based on positive modulation and negative modulation. So positive modulation, that means that enhancing the immunity part, uh, enhancing the total respiratory immunity. And when you talk about the negative modulation, that means actually you're talking about the anti-inflammatory part, controlling the inflammation or hypersensitivity part. So that proper immunomodulation is required for proper respiratory immunity. So for that, I just want to just tell, will I take just few minutes to talk about one of our product, that is Respis. So Respis is basically it's a completely natural and herbal solution that optimize the respiratory immunity. So it is quite unique in deliverables. So I just discuss on that. Uh, so as I told, Respis is completely natural and herbal. So it contains basically with four ingredients it is having. Out of that four, three are extracts, herbal extract like glycyrrhizin, vaccine, and rosmarinic acid, and one is essential oil, that is carvon. So it is made of three herbal extract and one essential oil. So while going to the mode of action, so mode of action actually what is expected. So recipes deliver the same for optimizing the respiratory immunity. One side, it enhances the respiratory immunity. So when it will improve the respiratory immunity, definitely birds will be more healthier, less vulnerability to diseases. So chances of having respiratory diseases will be much less. Productivity will be intact almost. There is an anti-inflammatory action also provided by recipes. So with this anti-inflammatory action, if there is any form of respiratory problem, also recovery will be faster. And the most unique point of recipes is better oxygenation. So recipes has a unique hematinic action and respiratory soothing effect, and thereby it helps in the better oxygenation part. So we all know that in modern breeds, the metabolic rate is quite high for giving the optimum productive performance. And to support the higher metabolic rate, proper oxygen supply to all cell is very crucial. And this oxygenation to all cell basically supported by two systems. One is respiratory system, second one is circulatory system. So recipes in one hand supporting the respiratory system by improving the respiratory immunity and taking care of respiratory health. And on the other side, with its hematinic action, it actually helps the oxygen carriage through blood and provides the proper oxygenation supply to all cells to support the optimum productive performance. So, as I told about the respiratory immunity, I'm just going through little deep. Like glycyrrhizin, we are talking about glycyrrhizin. It has a positive impact on humoral immunity. Glycyrrhizin also improves the lymphocyte and thrombocyte count and thymus cortex thickness. That will also improve the cell-mediated immunity. Glycyrrhizin inhibits the influenza A virus uptake into the cell. So it has an indirect role in somewhat to control the influenza A virus. Rosmarinic acid, another ingredient, it improves the antioxidant status. So through it reduces the oxidative stress and improve the immunity through antioxidant property. And vaccine also has a immunostimulatory property by through humoral as well as cell-mediated immunity improvement. Now talking to the as a validation part, Dr. Ruplikar sir has very much told that BALT, bronchial associated lymphoid tissue. So that is one of a marker of respiratory immunity. And we have seen that after given of recipes, the area of the bronchial associated respiratory tissue, BALT area, it has been improved in chicken. So it is quite evident when you are giving recipes, the respiratory immunity will improve. Then while talking on anti-inflammatory actions, we have done two tests. One is the COX-2 inhibitory action we have checked, and we have seen compared to product in that the COX-2 inhibitory property of recipes is much better in almost all doses, and the IC50 value is also much lesser. So it proves that recipes has a very significant anti-inflammatory property. We have done the similar trial on PGE2 inhibitory property, and we have also seen that the PGE2 inhibitory property also, in case of PGE2 inhibitory property, the reaction of recipes is much better than the competitor trials, and the IC50 value is also very much less. So these two trials very clearly that signifies that recipes has a strong anti-inflammatory property. And third, what we was talking about, the better oxygenation part, glycyrrhizin is a well-known hematinic agent that improves the hemoglobin and RBC level. So many of you may use some hematinic products for your bird. So recipes also take care, has a hematinic property and takes care of the hemoglobin and the RBC level, and it actually improves oxygen carriers through blood. Then again, Vaccination also has a potent bronchodilator. Recruiter sir several times he told about the bronchodilation during respiratory challenges. So it has a very strong, potent bronchodilator and respiratory stimulant. Carvon, that the essential oil, it is also have a very cooling effect, soothing effect on the respiratory tract. So overall, through a hematinic property and respiratory soothing effect, it improves the better oxygenation. That is a key point or key deliverable of recipes. The other benefits of recipes, as because it comes in the respiratory tonic segment, so there are some few generic benefits that almost every respiratory tonic provides, like antispasmodic property, bronchodilation property, mucolytic property, expectorant property, antioxidant property. So these are the very common benefits of any of the respiratory tonic, and recipes also having all this property. But these are very generic common properties, so we are not highlighting on that. We are highlighting on the unique property of recipes, that is improving the respiratory immunity or the anti-inflammatory property or the better oxygenation property. So if you see, it has all the property of a normal respiratory tonic as well as some unique property that gives that ensures the optimized respiratory health, immunity as well as productive performance. So while talking on performance, I just want to show one small trial data that we have done on broiler on 30,000 birds. So here we have taken two groups. One is control group, second one is recipes group. So both the groups, in there were some challenges with some CRD symptoms. So here, if you can see, while talking on the productive performance part, if you see the body weight, day 35 in control group, body weight was 1800 gram, whereas in recipes group, body weight was 1925 grams. So there is a significant improvement of 125 gram increase in the recipes group. Same with the day 42, the body weight was 2340 gram, and the recipes group it was 2500 gram. That is 160 gram more body weight in the recipes group. While talking in the FCR, in day 42, FCR was 1.89, whereas in the recipes group it is 1.71. That is 18-point improvement in the FCR. Then talking to the mortality, yeah, if you see the cumulative mortality from day 1 to 42, in control group the mortality was 8.76%, whereas in respiratory group it is quite less than 5% mortality. And activity level also, if you see in control group, 4 means 80% active, almost 80% bird it has a good activity level, whereas in the recipes group 100% birds were active. Now coming to the clinical signs part, if you see comparing both the group, control group and recipes group, if you see the nasal discharge in control group it is 2.5%, whereas in recipes group it is only 0.8%. Ocular discharge 2.3% in control group, whereas it is only 1% in recipes group. Similar finding we can see in gasping and feeding behavior, also much improved behavior in recipes group. So with this trial data, it is clear it is not only the one trial data, it has multiple trial data, and the summary it says that recipes not only takes care of the respiratory immunity, respiratory health, reduces the vulnerability to respiratory diseases. It also takes care of the productive performance of the bird. So just want to tell you the recommendation of recipes in broiler. It is being recommended in two phases. In the first phase, from 13th to 18th day, continuous 6 days, it is recommended for 10 ml per 100 birds. And in the second phase, 27 to 32 days, again for 6 days, it is recommended at 20 ml per 100 birds. For layers, it is recommended for week a month program, 15 ml per 100 birds, and breeders also it is recommended for week a month program, 20 ml per 100 birds. So the product is available in 1 liter and 5 liter. So thank you for listening me. If you have any query regarding the product, you can ask in the question segment.
Dr. Mithun, your mic is muted.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Chandan, for your crisp and informative presentation. You mentioned few relevant points in your presentation that could be very useful in the practice. So now we will proceed to the question answer session. We have received number of questions from audience and we will try to answer as many of them as possible. Okay, so I'll come up with the first question, sir. I would like Dr. Rukadin, sir, to answer this. How can we take care of the respiratory challenges in layer? Week a month antibiotic therapy is sufficient. This is the question, sir.
This is a good question, but as I said in my presentation, we are trying to minimize the use of antibiotics. In European countries, they are already banned, and in our country also, maybe next 4 or 5 years, they will be banned for preventive purpose. So week a month program, which is generally preventive purpose, should not be a normal tool for this. As I said, the managemental tools like clean environment, stress-free, dust-free, clear, good ventilation, those should be the good ones. And whenever they want to go with the live vaccines like IBN, ND live vaccines, they should use the products which will minimize the respiratory reaction so they can protect their tract, because they are long-lived birds as compared to broilers. So they are, the vaccinations are many and they have to take care during especially vaccine reactions.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. You gave a sufficient answer, sir. You gave such a beautiful answer for the question. So one more question, sir. I would like to give it to you. Any specific change in vaccination schedule is required to control respiratory infections?
See, basically what I feel in case of broilers or layers, even in breeders, as I said in my presentation, in the present scenario where low pathogenic AI is present pan-India, use of Lasota live vaccine many times causes reactions. And our very senior pathology, Dr. Zail Vegad, who retired as Dean of Jabalpur Veterinary College, he has written articles in 2008, World Veterinary Poultry Association, and one more journal, wherein he has clearly established that administration of Lasota live in the presence of AI causes respiratory reactions. So it is better to avoid those types of vaccines and go for clone vaccines that will give less chance of respiratory reaction, which may cause disease rather than protection.
Okay. So that was a good answer, sir. With the practical thing you have given the explanation. Dr. Chandan, sir, you have a question, sir. Can we use recipes in treatment also?
Yeah, basically recipes is designed for a prophylactic use, for a preventive use. So the thing is that if you continue to use for recipes in 2 stages, or maybe for layer and broiler for week a month program, so the chances of getting the respiratory disease will be less. But yeah, definitely if somebody want to use it in treatment purpose, definitely the product can be used for the treatment purpose also.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. That may have cleared many people's doubt. Rukadin, sir, we have one more question for you, sir. We'll go with last 2 more questions to you. What kind of management improvisation helps in reducing respiratory challenges in humid conditions?
In humid conditions, one thing is we must avoid overcrowding so that whatever is thrown out of the body as respiration water, that will be reduced. Second point, if the humidity is high and the air movement, natural air movement is not there, we have to fix high speed fans in the shades so that they will take out this humid air outside and birds can very easily respire inside. So those are the 2 things which can do as management is concerned.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Chandan, sir, you have one more question, sir. Does recipes interact with other medicines or supplements while adding in water?
No, actually recipes is, as I told, it's a completely natural and herbal product. and it actually very inert, and it doesn't react with any other medicine and or any feed supplement while adding in the water. It's very safe to add in the water.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. So because of this time constraint, we'll cut down this question answer session with the last two questions, sir. So the question, it will be for Rukatika, sir. As a evident, the bird's respiratory system is very advanced than human and is very effective. But what makes the bird more prone to respiratory infections than humans?
Actually, the system, no doubt it is advanced, but basically, as I said, it's not restricted to one part of the body. It is spread throughout the body. And that's why even a minor insult to any part of respiratory tract will naturally lead to respiratory distress. And since this is a very basic system, providing oxygen to all the tissues for their functioning, it will not do the work properly. And that's why even a minor insult, which may start from nostrils or in deeper inside, will cause the problem, because the system, though it is advanced, it's delicate also. And since it is not only lungs which expand, actually poultry lungs have very little expansion capacity as compared to we people. But the most important part is air sacs, which is a very delicate structure. And that's why, even though it is advanced, the minor insults will definitely cause respiratory distress, leading to poor results in poultry farm.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. I'll go with the last question to you, sir.
Yeah.
CRD is a common problem in field.
Mm-hmm.
How can we manage the situation?
CRD, many times it is vertically transmitted from parents to offspring. So first thing is purchase the chicks from known source where the parents are clean. Then there are certain medications which are preventive for Microplasmosis. All starts with T, Tylosin, Eminent, Tilvalosin, Tilmicocin. They can use as a preventive as per the usage instructions of the manufacturers. And third, if you are having doubt of Mycoplasma in the flock, vaccinations against IB and ND should be done at very young age. If you do go for later age vaccination, they are going to definitely cause much more reaction if the Mycoplasma is present. And similarly, if somebody is going for spray vaccination, the vaccination on day one, if they are doing, the size of droplets has to be very critically monitored. If the droplet size is less than 160 microns, it is definitely going to cause problem of Mycoplasmosis. Only when the birds are old enough, you can go to 100 microns. For younger birds, chicks like day 1 or day 2, the micron size of spray needs to be 160 to 180 microns. So one is vertical transmission, one is preventive treatment, and third is vaccination. All these things they have to take into account while managing the flock of broilers.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So we got one question, sir, which is a one interesting question, which I want to discuss with you. What is the main point in cleaning with disinfection to protect respiratory problem?
See, when I mean cleaning and disinfection, it is not targeted to protect only respiratory system. It's targeted at getting rid of most of the infectious agents present in the shed. So cleaning and disinfection, cleaning is the most important part in this, because cleaning has to be done to such an extent that you won't see any dust or dirt or grease or any cobwebs or anything with your naked eyes. So that will kill almost 80% of your organisms. And then your disinfection with a very good molecule, if you do as per the recommendation of the company, then it works. Because many times what I have seen is they use small quantity of water for spray as a terminal disinfection. What is recommended is actually 40 liters per 1,000 square feet shed, but they generally use hardly 10 to 15 liters per 1,000 square feet, empty shed I'm telling. So even if the molecule they use is good, it will not have the effect, because proportionately the product will also be less used in the shed. So cleaning is very important, dry cleaning, wherein most of the 80% will go, because if the cleaning is not proper, some organic matters remain. Your disinfectant, even if you increase the dose of disinfectant, it will be useless, because these pathogens, they are very safe in organic matter. Nowadays, of course, newer and newer disinfectants are coming, which claim to be effective in presence of organic matter also. But as a general rule, we should try to remove entire organic matter outside the shed before going for wet disinfection.
Thank you so much, sir, both the speakers, for answering the questions. My sincere thanks to Dr. Rutkar, sir, and Dr. Chandan for their valuable time and knowledge sharing with us. We have reached the end of this webinar. Due to the shortage of time, we couldn't answer all your questions right here, but I assure we will get back to you and answer all your questions through the email which you have provided. If you have any further queries or feedback to give, please contact your nearest representative from Natural Remedies, or you can write to us at chandan@naturalremedy.com. I'll be very happy to get your valuable suggestions or feedback, and we will reply to you at the earliest. Thank you all once again. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.